The New York City skyline shimmered beyond the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, its lights casting reflections on the polished marble floors. Emily Madison Hughes stood silently, her gaze unfocused, as she stared at the glittering horizon. There had been a time when this view left her in awe, a time when it symbolized endless dreams and possibilities. But that was years ago. Now the very lights that once captivated her seemed cold and distant, mocking the hollowness of her existence. Emily's hands trembled as she placed a small, white envelope on Adrian Hughes's mahogany desk. Next to it, she laid down her wedding ring, the diamond catching the city's lights and scattering prisms across the room. The final item she set down was a pregnancy test, the proof of a life growing inside her, a life she had sworn to protect from the suffocating void her marriage had become. For 5 long years, she had been Mrs. Hughes, a perfectly composed figure in designer gowns, attending endless galas and charity events. To the outside world, she lived a life of privilege and glamour. Inside, however, she was a prisoner, trapped by appearances, by expectations, and most of all by Adrian's relentless pursuit of control and perfection. Tonight, that life was over. Emily was no longer the accessory that adorned Adrian's empire. She was a woman reclaiming her identity, preparing to return to the one place where she had once felt whole, her family's vineyard in Napa Valley. Memories flooded Emily's mind as she stood alone in the stillness of the penthouse. She recalled the countless nights she spent waiting in the shadows, hoping Adrian would come home before midnight. But when he did, he barely acknowledged her presence, walking past as if she were invisible. His usual excuse echoed in her mind: "I have early meetings." To Adrian, she wasn't a partner. She was merely a piece of his carefully curated image. The painful memory of last week's charity gala resurfaced, sharp and vivid. Emily had stood amidst a group of investors attempting to discuss a charitable initiative. Before she could finish, Adrian had patted her hand condescendingly and addressed the crowd. "My wife. She's quite decorative, isn't she? Though I'm afraid that's the extent of her contributions." Polite laughter rippled through the group. Emily had struggled to keep her hands from trembling as she quietly retreated, their judgmental eyes following her. Later that night, she had locked herself in the marble bathroom and muffled her sobs, just like so many nights before. But this time was different. This time, she had made a choice. She was done enduring. "Mrs. Hughes?" Maria's voice came from the doorway. The housekeeper's weathered face was etched with concern. "The car's ready, ma'am." Emily inhaled deeply, gathering every ounce of courage she had, and nodded. "Thank you, Maria, for everything." Maria stepped forward, pressing a small package into her hands. "Your favorite herbal tea, it'll help with the morning sickness." Her eyes were warm and knowing. "Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is walk away." Tears threatened to fall, but Emily blinked them back. She had shed enough tears in this house. Taking a deep breath, she smoothed down her simple black dress, a far cry from the designer clothes Adrian had always insisted she wear. Tonight, she wasn't Adrian Hughes' trophy wife. She was Emily Madison, a woman choosing freedom for herself and her unborn child. Emily stepped into the elevator, her mind a storm of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. The polished metal doors slid shut behind her with a muted echo, as if closing off the last chapter of a life built on appearances and loneliness. For a moment, she exhaled deeply, feeling the weight on her chest begin to lift for the first time in years. She took a slow, measured breath, each second stretching out as the elevator silently descended. In the grand lobby, Marcus, the building's loyal doorman, looked up as she approached. His eyes reflected a deep understanding and quiet empathy. He had seen her walk through this lobby too many times with tear-streaked cheeks after lonely, sleepless nights. "Take care of yourself, Mrs. Hughes," he said softly, holding the large glass door open for her. Emily paused for a moment, her lips curving into a faint smile. "It's just Emily Madison now." Marcus gave a respectful nod without further comment. She stepped outside, leaving behind the glittering facade of the life that had trapped her for so long. A sleek black car waited by the curb. Richard, her uncle's trusted driver, opened the door for her. Her small suitcase was swiftly placed in the trunk. Emily slowly eased herself into the back seat, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach. "Let's go," she murmured, her voice soft but resolute. As the car pulled away from the curb, she caught a final glimpse of the towering building that had been her gilded cage for the past 5 years. She didn't look back. Instead, she spoke quietly to the life growing inside her, her words a solemn promise. "You'll never feel unloved, I promise." The city lights faded into the distance as the car merged into traffic, heading toward the airport and the path to freedom. The warm California sun bathed the endless rows of grapevines in a golden glow as the car traveled down the familiar dirt roads leading to her family's vineyard. The scene pulled Emily back to her childhood. Days spent running barefoot between the vines, breathing in the earthy scent of the land and the delicate fragrance of wildflowers. From the rearview mirror, Richard gave her a reassuring smile. "Almost there, Miss Emily. Home's been waiting for you." Emily nodded, but her heart remained conflicted, both heavy with the ghosts of her recent past and cautiously hopeful. She glanced out the window at the familiar landscape, her mind drifting to memories of her mother's voice whispering comfort among the vines. This was her sanctuary, yet she knew healing would not come instantly. She gazed out the window at the vineyard, where clusters of ripe grapes shimmered in the sunlight. In the distance, the family villa came into view, a Mediterranean-style house with whitewashed walls and red-tiled roofs, standing proudly amidst the sea of green. The car turned onto the stone-paved driveway leading up to the main house. On the front porch, Uncle Leo waited, his sturdy frame silhouetted against the warm glow of the late afternoon sun. Though older now, he still exuded the quiet strength of a man deeply rooted in the land. One look at Emily, and his eyes softened with understanding. "Auze, my darling niece, you're finally home," Uncle Leo greeted her warmly, opening his arms wide. Emily stepped forward and sank into the embrace, inhaling the familiar scent of oak and sunshine clinging to his jacket. Tears threatened to fall, but this time they carried a sense of release. "I was afraid I'd never feel this again." "You're here now, and that's all that matters. We'll take care of you, Emily," he promised with quiet conviction. From inside the house, Aunt Sophie appeared, her hands dusted with flour. "Good heavens, look at you, skin and bones. What have you been eating all these years, air and water?" Emily laughed, a genuine, unexpected sound. Aunt Sophie grabbed her gently and ushered her inside, chattering about the meal she had prepared, fresh bread, ripe fruit, and their family's signature wine. For the first time in years, Emily felt like she had crossed a threshold, not just into a house, but into the comforting warmth of home. Emily stepped into the grand house, immediately enveloped by the comforting warmth she had missed for so long. The scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the earthy aroma of oak barrels, filling the air. At the large wooden table in the center of the room, Aunt Sophie was already bustling, arranging a spread of delicious homemade food. "Sit down, sweetheart," Aunt Sophie said, gently guiding Emily into a chair. "You need to eat something. No one's here to control your meals anymore." Emily smiled softly, though a pang of sorrow tugged at her chest. In New York, Adrian had insisted she follow a strict diet overseen by nutritionists to maintain the perfect image. Now, the sight of simple food, bread, cheese, and fresh fruit, brought her an overwhelming sense of comfort and healing. "You need rest," Aunt Sophie continued, settling across from her. "We've got your room all ready. It's just the way you left it, though we may need to make a few changes soon." Her gaze shifted subtly to Emily's midsection, where the faint curve of her pregnancy was beginning to show. Emily placed a protective hand over her stomach, feeling the growing life within her. "You already know?" Emily asked softly, her voice laced with surprise. "Didn't need anyone to tell me," Aunt Sophie replied with a knowing smile. "I can see it in your face. Plus, I've got a bit of intuition when it comes to these things." Uncle Leo entered the room moments later, setting a stack of clean towels on a nearby shelf. "We'll take care of both of you," he said firmly. "You don't have to worry about anything anymore. This is your home, Emily, and we won't let anyone hurt you again." A wave of relief and safety washed over Emily, bringing tears to her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt the true meaning of home, a place of belonging, love, and healing. Adrian Hughes entered the penthouse close to 3 a.m., exhausted after a grueling day of business. The silence that greeted him was something he normally welcomed. He had grown accustomed to not hearing pointless conversations about someone's day or Emily's futile attempts to connect with him, but tonight the stillness felt unsettling. As he stepped into his office, he noticed something was off. A familiar scent hung in the air. Jasmine, Emily's perfume. She never entered his office. It was an unspoken rule between them. But tonight it seemed she had broken that rule. His gaze fell upon the desk, where three objects lay waiting. The glittering diamond wedding ring, a pristine white envelope with his name written in Emily's elegant handwriting, and something else, a pregnancy test. Adrian's chest tightened. "This is ridiculous," he muttered under his breath, but his hands shook slightly as he reached for the envelope. He opened the letter carefully, an unfamiliar feeling of dread settling over him. Emily's words hit him like a series of sharp blows, each line cutting through the armor of detachment he had meticulously built. "Adrian, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not for a few days or weeks. Forever. I've spent 5 years trying to turn this marriage into something real, but you can't change because you don't want to. I've endured enough, but now there's someone else to consider. Our child." Adrian paused, his eyes shifting to the pregnancy test on the desk. The word positive glared back at him like an accusation. He continued reading the final lines of the letter. "Don't try to find me. Your power and wealth won't reach where I'm going. Consider this my gift to you. Freedom from the burden of pretending to be a husband. You can finally live the way you want, completely alone." The letter slipped from his hand, fluttering to the floor like the fragile remains of their broken marriage. For a moment, Adrian stood frozen, her words echoing in his mind like the final toll of a bell, cold, resolute, and unrelenting. The weight of her departure crushed him in a way no corporate loss ever had. Then panic surged. He grabbed his phone and called his head of security. "Find Emily, now," he demanded, his voice tight with urgency. But within minutes, he received a grim report. Her credit cards hadn't been used, her phone was off, and the last footage showed her leaving the building at midnight in a car owned by her uncle. Every plan to track her down hit a wall. Her family had shielded her, blocking his influence at every turn. Standing alone in the silence of the penthouse, Adrian felt something he hadn't experienced in years: fear. The fear of losing something that no amount of money could ever replace. In the days following her return to the vineyard, Emily slowly began reconnecting with herself and the land that had shaped her. Morning sunlight shimmered across the rows of grapevines, casting a golden glow on the dewdrops that clung to the leaves. She walked slowly through the vineyard, taking deep breaths of the familiar earthy air, feeling the peaceful rhythm of a life she had lost during her years in New York's suffocating world of appearances. Each morning, she rose early to help Aunt Sophie prepare breakfast for the vineyard workers. Simple tasks like kneading dough, baking bread, and harvesting fresh vegetables brought a quiet sense of healing to her soul. One quiet afternoon, Emily sat on the porch, her gaze drifting over the sprawling vineyard. Memories of her mother, Catherine, surfaced. Memories of a woman who had taught her to cherish the land and to find beauty in life's simple moments. Her mother had passed away many years ago, leaving a deep void in Emily's life. Uncle Leo joined her, sitting down with a gentle expression. "You know, your mother was always so proud of you," he said softly. "She always believed you would find your way, no matter how hard life might get." Emily smiled faintly, placing a hand over her growing belly. "She's still guiding me even though she's not here. I think I've finally found my way back." "She'd be thrilled to see you now," Uncle Leo replied. "And you don't have to face anything alone anymore. You have your family here, and a whole community ready to support you." Later that afternoon, Emily worked alongside the vineyard crew, pruning the vines and reviewing the vineyard's records with Uncle Leo. The simple, steady rhythm of her tasks grounded her, giving her a sense of ownership over her life once more. For the first time in years, she felt like she was truly living, not just existing as a part of someone else's world. Adrian arrived in Napa Valley with the intention of seeing Emily immediately, but his plans were quickly thwarted. Her family, especially Uncle Leo, refused to let him near her. In a tense conversation at the gates of the vineyard, Uncle Leo made his stance clear. "You won't see Emily unless she's ready. This is family land, and here, your power means nothing." Adrian stood in stunned silence, realizing for the first time that the money and influence he had always relied on held no sway here. After a long pause, he exhaled deeply and asked, What do I need to do? Uncle Leo gestured toward the small nearby town. Prove yourself. We don't need promises or cash. If you truly want to understand Emily, start by learning where she comes from. Adrian made the decision to stay in Napa, taking a job at a small vineyard run by a family friend. His first day was grueling. His hands, accustomed to signing contracts and holding conference calls, struggled to grip tools and carry heavy barrels. Sweat soaked through the old work shirt he had hastily bought from a local shop. The townspeople watched him with suspicion. They knew exactly who he was and what he had done to Emily. But instead of giving up, Adrian patiently learned and worked hard. Jack, the vineyard owner, observed Adrian over several days before offering a curt nod of approval. You're doing all right. Not bad for a guy who used to think power came from his wallet. Day by day, Adrian found himself slowly adjusting to the rhythm of vineyard life. His muscles ached, his hands blistered, and he cursed under his breath more times than he could count, but he kept going. Over time, he began to notice the small rewards. A smile from Jack when he correctly pruned a vine, a nod of approval from the townspeople as he helped unload grape crates. These moments of connection, built through effort rather than power, began to reshape his understanding of success. For the first time in years, he felt like he was building something real. Emily never expected to face Adrian again under such dire circumstances. The day had started like any other. She woke early, tending to the vineyard and checking the southern fence line. However, by late afternoon, a dull ache began to spread across her lower abdomen. At first, she brushed it off as fatigue, but the pain gradually intensified. Jack, the vineyard owner, found her stumbling between the rows of grapevines. Emily, are you all right? She tried to remain composed but couldn't hide the agony on her face. Jack, I think I need to get to the hospital. The pain, it's too much. Without hesitation, Jack called out to Adrian. Get the truck, now! We've got to get her out of here! Adrian rushed over, his face paling as he saw Emily clutching her stomach. Emily, what's happening? He asked, fear evident in his voice. The baby's coming, she gasped, sweat pouring down her face. I didn't think it would be this soon. Together, Adrian and Jack helped Emily into the truck. They sped down the rural road toward the nearest hospital, the bumpy terrain making the situation even more tense. Adrian held her hand tightly the entire ride, speaking softly to reassure her. You're strong, Emily. You and the baby are going to be okay, I promise. At the hospital, nurses quickly whisked Emily away to the emergency room. Adrian and Jack stood anxiously in the hallway, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on both of them. An hour passed, stretching endlessly. Finally, a doctor emerged with a calm, reassuring expression. Both mother and baby are safe. The baby was born early but is in good health. Adrian nearly collapsed in relief. He followed the doctor into the recovery room, where Emily lay resting. When she saw him, she offered a weak but genuine smile, tears shimmering in her eyes. Her baby, she whispered. Adrian sat beside her, gently taking her hand in his. Emily, thank you for letting me be here with you. I'll never let you go through this alone again. The gentle morning sunlight streamed through the hospital window, casting a warm glow over the room where Emily held her newborn daughter in her arms. The tiny baby, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, slept peacefully against her chest. Adrian stood quietly beside them, his eyes filled with awe and gratitude as he took in the scene before him. She looks like you, he whispered, his gaze never leaving the baby's serene face. Emily gently ran her fingers over her daughter's delicate hair. She's a part of both of us, Adrian, but she will grow up surrounded by love, not control and coldness. Adrian nodded, a mixture of sorrow and resolve in his eyes. I know. I can't change the past, but I want to build a different future for her and for you. I bought a small vineyard nearby. I want to learn how to care for it from the ground up, the way you did. I want our daughter to know both sides of life, love, family, and responsibility. Emily studied him, seeing a man who was no longer the cold, power-obsessed figure she had left behind. Now, he was someone searching for redemption, someone willing to embrace a new way of living. It's going to be a long road, Adrian, she said softly. I need time to learn how to trust you again. I understand, he replied. I'm not asking for forgiveness overnight. I just want to be near you and our daughter, one day at a time. Outside the room, Uncle Leo and Aunt Sophie entered, carrying fresh flowers and baked goods. "The whole town is thrilled for you and the baby, Emily," Aunt Sophie said, placing the bouquet on the bedside table. "We held a prayer circle last night." Emily smiled, warmth flooding her heart at the support and love surrounding her. Adrian stepped toward the window, gazing out at the sprawling vineyards in the distance. The golden morning sun illuminated his face, revealing a man transformed, a man learning to love without conditions. He turned back to Emily and their child, hope glimmering in his eyes. "Shall we start over?" Adrian asked gently, his voice trembling with both hope and fear. Emily hesitated for a moment, her gaze locking with his. Slowly, she nodded, feeling the weight of both forgiveness and caution. "One day at a time," she agreed, her hand resting protectively over their child. "But I'm willing to try." In her arms, their daughter stirred slightly, as if agreeing with her mother. The warm sunlight bathed the room, signaling a new beginning for all of them.